Hi, everyone, and welcome to this week's Prophecy Update. As always, it's our desire to bring the events that are happening in the world from a biblical perspective and also a prophetic perspective. So thanks for joining us this week. This week, we're going to talk about the real purpose for electric cars. And so recently, Gavin Newsom, Pharaoh Newsom as I call him, has put out an edict that by 2035, California is going to eliminate all their gas cars and go to electric cars. And he's notified that all the manufacturers need to sell California electric cars because that's the only car you're going to be able to drive in California. And so a lot of people out there are saying, well, that's just California and California's crazy. But you got to understand, what happens in California eventually hits the rest of the nation. And eventually the rest of the world is going to get on this ticket because already like 22 states are already thinking about going to electric cars. They haven't implemented it and made an edict yet, but they're heading that direction. They're following California's green agenda. Anyway, the elites that are doing this are intentionally causing an energy crisis. And as you know, they're using a fake narrative of global warming. And you know, and I know that their ultimate goal is total control over people's lives. Therefore, this is why we see such just a forcing of these green agenda policies, forcing it on us, pushing it on us, no matter what sector of society you're in. And now we're seeing us being forced into electric cars instead of being able to use combustible engines that gas fuels. But really what's at stake is our freedoms. Through this green agenda, they intend to destroy our freedoms. They're going to cause food scarcity with this green agenda, the loss of jobs. They're going to destroy our mobility and the ability to drive places and go to different states. And this is going to happen all around the world. And of course, this green agenda is destroying our economics. And this all is intentional, guys. It's all intentional. They know what they're doing. They're not a bunch of bumbling idiots. They do know why they're doing this. And this new push to go green by everyone driving an electric car is another step towards totalitarian control. They're going to force you and I to buy electric cars that we don't even want, but will limit our mobility. So on this broadcast, we're going to discuss the implications of these electric cars and people like Gavin Newsom and the rest of these other states and around the world pushing us to electric cars and off of gas and fossil fuels. And we're going to talk about how this fits into biblical prophecy. So the elites, the global elites, using the governments of the world and using corporations of the world are forcing this agenda on everything and everyone. Go green to save the planet. That's the agenda, right? And they've got everybody on the take. Whether that's in education, the media, the Hollywood, music industry, politics, corporations, whatever sector of society, they have brainwashed every sector of society about going green. I call this the green dragon because that's really what it is. This radical, environmentalist, anti-human agenda is coming from the globalists. In fact, it's actually, you can trace it down coming from China, to the World Economic Forum, to the UN, and other globalist institutions are all involved in this. Whether it's billionaires like Bill Gates or whoever, they're all pushing this agenda. Now, the very ones at the top know that global warming is a hoax. They know it, okay? The other ones, their disciples who are pushing this narrative, believe it or are just going along in order to get rich, because this is about a Ponzi scheme. They're going to get rich through all of this. But you and I, we're going to go poor, right? And it's very anti-human, okay? And we know why it's anti-human. The globalists want to eliminate humans on the planet. We call it depopulation. That's a real agenda, right? And so this green energy agenda seeks to take us back to pre-industrial days, take us back to, where we're in a log cabin with a wood fire or stuff like that. I mean, it's insane. All the 100 years that we have of development and technology all came from fossil fuels and clean and good energy. And now they're just going to throw it down the tubes for, well, we got to get on renewable energy sources that are more clean, that don't throw carbon into the atmosphere. And you and I both know that carbon doesn't hurt the atmosphere; it actually greens up the planet. So they're out of their minds, right? This is a hoax, but they want to get on wind and solar and whatnot, and electricity. And because of that, they're going to control us through electricity. And this is why countries all over the globe, like Germany and France and Europe, and states like California, are getting crushed economically because they're following the green agenda, eliminating natural gas, eliminating coal, eliminating gasoline and diesel, and even eliminating nuclear. Now think about this. California, as an example, shut down one of its nuclear plants, San Onofre, okay? But when they shut down San Onofre power plant, it produced 37 million tons of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. And I'm thinking, don't you want to save the planet? Aren't you afraid of carbon dioxide? But apparently not. They weren't worried about that at all because the elites are above the rules. They know this is a fake hoax. And in their minds, they can pollute to save the environment. So, this is the most ridiculous thing you've ever seen. And this is why, putting everyone on the grid is going to cause blackouts for people and electrical outages and all kinds of stuff. Because whether it's in Europe or in America, we don't have the grid to handle all this on an electrical grid. We have to have natural gas. We have to have nuclear power. We have to have all these other sources of energy to keep going the way we're going. Otherwise, there's going to be a collapse of society. And the situation that we find ourselves in California is the same situation Europe finds itself in. So California, because it shuts off gas, coal, all these other fossil fuels that provided plenty of energy for California, they cut themselves off to go to renewables. But then California has to import a third of its energy from other places. And it's ridiculous. And that's what's happening with Europe. They cut themselves off from gas and coal and nuclear. And so what do? They became dependent on Putin in Russia for natural gas. Then what happens with Putin gets into a war with Ukraine, he shuts off the gas or threatens to shut off the gas, and they're jammed up too because of going green and following the rules of the Green Dragon. They have to import it where they can make it themselves. Germany, all these places, France, could have nuclear energy and completely be energy independent from Russia. California completely could be energy independent. United States could be completely energy independent and would not have to go to Saudi Arabia or the United Arab Emirates or any of these other countries to get oil or anything from them for energy. And so this is intentional, okay? This is intentional. It looks like from the outside these people are buffoons, but it's intentional because they're trying to destroy countries and build it back better. That's the term, build back better for something the Bible predicts. And the Bible predicts a global government, right? And they want to control basically in this global government everything we do. So they're going to start telling us when we can turn on our appliances and when we have to turn them off. They're going to control the temperatures we set in our house. I remember we were having some PG&E problems and the bill was skyrocketing. We called PG&E here in California, and our electrical numbers went crazy. They put on a smart meter on our house. All of a sudden, my average bill was $150, went to like $700. So we had to call and say, what's going on here? Well, they recommended that we run our temperature at 84 degrees in the summertime. And here in Bakersfield, it's like 110, 105, and they recommended running at 84. And I said, you guys are insane. Who runs their air at 84? It's 110 outside. And they said, well, that's pretty cold. And I said, cold for what? Well, they lived in the Bay Area and it was cold there in San Francisco. So they're just out of touch with reality. And then they want us to run our heat in the wintertime at 60 degrees, 65 degrees, whatever, okay? It's crazy. They don't get to tell us, but that's what they want to do. And think about this, the situation in Germany as we speak. Germany has eliminated nuclear, eliminated fossil fuels, and they have been dependent on Putin for natural gas. And now, because of going green, the German people are now turning to using wood for heat now. Yeah, it's pre-industrial. Breitbart reported that while the German government prevaricates around its self-imposed energy crisis, and that's a good thing to say, Germany put a self-imposed energy crisis, just like California is putting a self-imposed energy crisis. He goes on to say citizens are taking matters into their own hands to keep themselves warm this coming winter, with sales of cheap, reliable wood burners soaring in Europe. So yeah, they're turning to wood, going down and cutting trees to provide fuel, to provide heat for their homes. That's insane. That's pre-industrial type of living. If you recall, it wasn't too long ago that Trump was speaking at the UN and he told the German government at the UN meeting that their dependence upon Russia for gas is going to hurt them in the end. And remember what they did? They laughed at him. Remember this? Watch this.
Germany will become totally dependent on Russian energy if it does not immediately change course. Here in the Western Hemisphere, we are committed to maintaining our independence from the encroachment of expansionist foreign powers. It has been the formal policy of our country since President Monroe.
You want to ask those diplomats that were at the UN, who's laughing now? And if you're in Germany and you're watching us, your government is just as crazy as the United States government, just as crazy as California's government. And they laughed at Trump telling them and warning them. What have they done? The very thing he warned them about. And you'd think that these diplomats, these politicians would get a clue and wake up, but they're not. Our government in the United States is not waking up. The state-ran government under Gavin Newsom in California is not going to wake up, and neither are the politicians in Europe going to wake up, or in South Africa, or in New Zealand, or in Australia, or anywhere else the Western civilization is at, because Western civilization is in the crosshairs of the globalists. They want to take Western civilization down, to break it down and rebuild it to a global government. That's the point, okay? And so you and I are under this beginning stages of the global government. That's really what's going on with this green stuff happening. Anyway, this is going to destroy businesses around the world. It's happening in California, but it's happening especially in Europe, who's in an energy crisis. The Blaze website had a good article about what's going on in Europe and how it's damaging these businesses and putting people out of work because of this energy, forced energy compliance with the Green Dragon. So it noted that in Europe, because of skyrocketing electricity bills, people are taking to social media and showing how bad their bills are and what it's doing to their economy and to their small business. So one guy tweeted out, my mom owns a small cafe in Leicester. Her electricity bill has just jumped from basically $12,000 a year to $64,000 a year in American dollars. And he goes on and says she is working out her options, but more than likely she will be forced to close. Yeah, she probably will, because that's insane to have that electricity bill go that high. The article goes on and says energy prices have spiked due to the governments trying to shift to green energy sources, as well as the lack of energy imports from Russia due to the ongoing conflict in the Ukraine. And another user on Twitter posted a message that was similar to the one you just heard. This was from a local restaurant in the UK that said they're going to be closing soon because of electricity cost. They tweeted out, "It has been a very difficult few years with the Charlie Oscar Victor Igloo Delta," and you can read between the lines what I'm saying, "but the last few months with the loss of business due to the cost of living crisis, the huge increase in our costs, and the completely ridiculous energy prices that companies are charging, there is no price cap." And continues to say on the tweet, "have meant it is no longer sustainable for us to continue. We have tried so hard to make it work, and we are devastated that it has ended this way and so abruptly." Another person in, England, Helen Patton, she posted a similar story on Twitter. She said this: "We closed our tea room cafe we've run for 7 years due to the increasing costs in food / petrol / utilities back in the spring. We can't sustain the hikes and thought we would wait until the economy perked up again in the summer, but obviously we will never open again." Another businessman from Ireland showed his electric bill spiking to nearly 10,000 euros, or about $10,025 here in the United States. Can you imagine that? The cost of electricity in Germany and France has soared tenfold over the last year, according to one report. And in the same article that the Blaze had, this individual by the name of Tracy Schuart of Intelligence Quarterly told CNBC that Europe was heading into a recession partly due to the energy crisis. She said Europe is heading into a recession. If you look at power prices across Europe, not just the EU, we're not even at winter yet, and they're hitting an energy crisis. So they're definitely heading towards a recession. And I would throw in the United States, I would throw any country into that that's practicing this stupid green agenda. So let's get back to the energy crisis that Gavin Newsom has created in California and what he has recently done. So Pharaoh Newsom comes out with the latest green edict, and here's the announcement, the edict from the California government right there, that says basically by 2035, California will phase out gasoline-powered cars and force its residents to buy electric vehicles. So all new cars, passenger trucks sold in California are to be zero-emission vehicles, okay? So you think, well, that's California. No, it's coming all over. It's going to hit your state. It's going to hit the world, okay? Gavin Newsom is a globalist. You have to understand. He's trained by Klaus Schwab. So that's why globalist practices are practiced here in California. But what you see here starts the process and goes everywhere. We're the test case, if you want to call it. So what is this? It's green by force, according to Joe Pollack of Breitbart News. He wrote in an article entitled "Efficiency, the Reasonable Alternative to Democrats' Green by Force Policy." He basically said in the article, all of this is unnecessary. I would agree. It's based on a lie. It's based on the lie that mankind is affecting the planet by its carbon emissions. Anthropocentric carbon emissions does not affect the planet. Is there global warming? Yes, but it doesn't come from humans. It's not anthropocentric. It's actually sun. It's coming from the sun. That's where it is. And the ebbs and flows of cold and hot and all of that have to do with the sun, not what humans do. Okay? So that's why it's a hoax. Weather happens. The sun heats up the planet and sometimes it cools. Solar flares, all kinds of stuff like that, right? But Anthropocentric, man-made carbon emissions does not affect the planet. I'm sorry, it doesn't. I've read reports, I've listened to scientists, and it doesn't. It's a hoax. Anyway, Pollitt from Breitbart goes on to say in this article that Democrats have decided that America must be forced to choose green technologies, whether they work or not. And that's the key. They don't care if it works or not. They're going to force you to an electric car. And he goes on, he says, you will be forced to buy a vehicle you cannot use. I'll explain that in just a bit. If you can't get to work and you're stuck on the road, at least, in your mind, you've saved the planet, right? You're virtue signaling by your electric car. It's basically what he's saying. He goes, people like the idea that their cars are good for the environment. It provides the same kind of narcissistic pleasure and envy that fancy cars have always evoked, he said. He goes on and says, and companies like Tesla have made electric vehicles even more attractive by adding special features that identify their products as a luxury brand. So for instance, he says, take for instance the Toyota Prius. He goes on and says in the article, it became very popular about a decade ago. And what made it popular is that they offered a way to save money on fuel and a way for drivers to boast that they were reducing American dependency on the Middle East oil. But like he says, it's completely unnecessary for American energy consumers to be frog-marched into accepting renewable sources as the only options. An abundance of natural gas, thanks in part to fracking, which environmentalists and these crazy environmentalists want to ban, has allowed the U.S. to reduce emissions over the long run, even while growing the economy. Other fossil fuels, such as coal, produce more emissions, but also burn cleaner than they have ever been before. And nuclear power remains the simplest way to produce lots of zero emissions energy. Yet they don't use it. There is nothing so efficient and so bad for the planet as an artificial energy shortage, which is what they've created. Because when people cannot turn on the heat or lights, they use whatever energy sources are available, from diesel powered generators to wood cooking fires. But why? You must ask the question, why? Why are they doing this that's so unnecessary? Well, think about this. None of this makes sense. According to another article on The Blaze, our electric grid can't handle this. You can't force people onto electric cars because the electrical grid can't handle it. So for instance, in the article that the Blaze had, Jack Bauer, he's a professor of mechanical and aerospace engineering at the University of California, Irvine, told CBS LA that the grid does not currently have the capability to add millions of battery electric or even fuel cell electrical vehicles today. If we try to move in this direction and only use battery electric vehicles, we will fail. The grid cannot charge every single transportation application. He's telling you that. So they're doing things that we don't have the infrastructure for. Then in the same article, it noted that Western States Petroleum Association stated yesterday that the electrification of the transportation sector will increase demand by around 300,000 gigawatt hours stateside. Well, what does that mean? Well, Sacramento Bee noted that this would be equivalent to doubling of the present electricity demands. So again, we don't have the grid for this. Senior energy analyst at the Union of Concerned Scientists, Mike Jacobs, told Yahoo Finance, the use of an electric vehicle is like adding 1 or 2 air conditioners to your residence in terms of its energy increase. That's insane, right? Who in the world would come up with this idea? And to further add to this, according to a 2021 California Energy Commission report, in order to support 5 million electrical vehicles, California will require over 700,000 public and shared private chargers. In a subsequent release, the CEC indicated that the state will acquire 1.2 million chargers by 2030. The CEC Commissioner Patty Monahan indicated that this goal is ambitious. After all, the CEC has noted that the state presently has only, think about this, 79,023 electric vehicle chargers. That includes both public and private chargers. So what does that mean? It means we can't support it. They push us all to electric vehicles, but we can't support because we don't have the infrastructure. We don't have enough charging stations. We don't have enough grid for this. We can't produce enough electricity. So where's that going to leave everyone? Can't go to work, can't go to the store, can't drive your car. It's crazy. But it's intentional. So think about this, how insane this is. Just after this edict that California is going to go to all electric cars in 2035, the California elites went even further and telling current electric car drivers not to charge their electric vehicles at certain times of the day because of the energy shortage, because of an expected heat wave that's going to hit California over the Labor Day weekend. And that excess people, charging their vehicles will cause blackouts. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that hypocritical? You tell us we're going to electric vehicles, and then the next day you tell people don't plug in your electric vehicles. What are they supposed to do? Not go to work, not go to the store, stay in their house? That's right. Take away people's freedom of mobility. You're right. That's the point. These people seemingly have lost their minds, but they're following an agenda. Okay? They're following an agenda. Now, they have been Romans 1 to follow the agenda, and they follow it blindly. And they don't care if they destroy a state. They don't care if they destroy a nation. Okay? They're sold out for the agenda. It is a mass psychosis that has happened to people. Okay? And the elites are under this. Furthermore, think about this. Renewable energy is a flat out joke. Wind and solar is a joke. There's not enough wind and solar. What happens at night? Okay? It's a joke. It's not going to work. Tucker Carlson reported the other night on his show during his monologue, and he was quoting the LA Times. And the LA Times, back in April of 2021, reported a story where California did an experiment on renewable energy. Okay, so check this out. They tested it in April, okay, which is like perfect weather here in California, right? It's not hot, not too cold. And so that's not a good time to test. You want to test the energy in the wintertime or in the summertime, not in the spring, okay? Anyway, they did it with they did this experiment where they used renewable energy. And anyway, they saw with the experiment that they were able to run energy off of renewables for 4 seconds. You're right, 4 seconds. And that's as long as it lasted. 4 seconds. And in those 4 seconds, they say California was producing enough clean power to supply 95% of its in-state needs. But guess what? They didn't tell you this. It was not supplying LA, largest city in California. It wasn't supplying Sacramento and other regions. Furthermore, it wasn't entirely renewable energy. They were burning natural gas too. And so what it proved in their little experiment of 4 seconds is this, that renewable energy that they so desire and want us to go there by force cannot supply the energy to people. It's a failure. It's too expensive and it fails to supply adequate energy. And recognize this, guys. It's not just about cars. It's not about just making sure all the cars are electric. They're going to hit us in the housing areas as well. See, they want our housing developments to be all green, go green. And so now what's happening is they're creating homes or building homes that are all electric. Yeah, no gas, nothing else, but run on electric. I mean, my grandma's house used to run on all electric in the 60s. And that was insane. And now they want to go back to that. They want to eliminate natural gas. I talked to a builder, and he was telling me that the new construction, they have to seal off the gas lines and all that and actually patch it over so that the customer that comes in the house doesn't even know there's a gas line to the house, because they want it all to be electric, smart home, green home, right? And think about this. According to the California Energy Commission, and this was March 15th, 2022, they put out a statement. And the state leaders basically launched a new program encouraging builders to construct all electrical affordable housing. And so this program offers $60 million in incentives to builders who construct innovative, energy efficient, and healthier homes for low-income Californians. Basically, they're all electric, okay? So it's not just gonna stay with the cars, it's going to our housing. And so they're gonna basically tell us how to run our air in the house. They're gonna tell us, what we can do in our house, where we can go with our cars. So let's bring this back to prophecy, okay? How does this relate to Bible prophecy? What's the real purpose behind forcing people to buy electric cars? Or making houses, all electric, going green, right? It's not about saving the planet. That's the propaganda. Why are they pushing so hard and so fast? Because the issue is they want to introduce a global government. And the way they're going to do it is you have to destroy nations in order to build the global government out of the ashes of the destruction that you caused on the nations through an energy crisis, right? They're intentionally destroying economies and countries with the green agenda. They're intentionally destroying fossil fuels that got us into the 21st century. And it's all to get to a global government. Destroy nations and build them back. Build back better was their motto, remember that? And so, as you know, the Bible predicts a one world government, right? That will eventually have total control of every human being on this planet. And we're rapidly going there. This is what's currently forming right in front of us. This is what this is about. This is how we connect dots. And we're seeing them get more control every week almost. And they're doing it through different things and agendas. For instance, they're doing it through private-public partnerships, which is a form of fascism. So what the government can't legally pass because they don't have the votes and people won't vote for crazy things like this, right? I didn't vote to go all electric in our cars. They just forced it on us. But in order to do that, they had to have a private and public partnership with corporations. So the public represents the government, the private represents the corporation. So the government is telling the corporations what to implement. And that way they can bypass the Constitution, bypass laws in any country. And so it's the corporations that come around and push the issue. Or if they have a dictatorial governor like we do, they can just do it through him and he can pass, restrictions and laws and stuff like that. But let's say Gavin Newsom working with the auto companies, realizing everything's going green and telling the auto companies, so look, man, you want to sell cars in California? You got to go electric. So here's what will happen. The car manufacturers realize this, and so they're just going to go electric. And so you won't be able to buy gas-powered cars. And I heard that some of these companies are already doing it now, that by 2023, some of the lines of muscle cars, I think it was Dodge or Ford or something like that, their muscle cars are all going electric by 2023. You will not be able to buy another muscle car from those manufacturers that will be gas-powered. And so they're already starting to do it. So what happens as a citizen, you're like, wait a second, I didn't vote for this. And it's forced on you. And the companies are on board, so it's not like you can go buy a gas-powered car. You have to. Or the new housing, you want to buy a new house, well, I'm sorry, it's all electric. Even in California, all the new homes are electric. There's not gas or anything else. And so they're forcing it upon you, and you don't have a vote. And this is how they're going around through the back door to force the green agenda on us. They don't have to pass a law. They just do it through the companies. That's how the public-private partnership is working. And as another example, gasoline. Okay, they want you on a electric vehicle. So what do? We'll jack up the prices of gasoline by cutting countries off of fossil fuels and deeming fossil fuels evil. And so now your gas prices go up, and what are you thinking? Well, I'm going to be forced to go electric. And that's how they're doing it, right? That's how they force you off, and you have no choice. But guys, they're doing this on all different issues. They're doing this with food and the attack on meat, right? I did a whole thing on this. They want you to eat bugs instead of protein, right? From cows or chickens, they want you to eat bug protein. It's disgusting. They're doing this with religion. They're doing this with water, farming, currencies. They're going to go digital here pretty soon. And all of this is about controlling energy so that they can control humans. And the specific thing they want to control with the cars and the electric cars is your freedom of mobility. They're taking away your rights of mobility without breaking the law. What do you mean? Well, in the United States, our U.S. Constitution, under the Fourth Amendment, protects us and gives us the right of freedom of movement under the terms privileges and immunities. That we as American citizens have the right to go to Nevada, to Arizona, New York, wherever, without us having to pull papers or anything like that. We have the freedom of mobility. Well, that's the way it is in some countries as well. They want to eliminate your freedom of mobility. Okay, they don't like that. So instead of passing a law, which they can't pass because it would break the Fourth Amendment in the U.S. Constitution that has already been ruled on, they'll just say, well, we're not going to make it illegal for you to drive to Nevada from California. We're just going to have you drive a car that can only go 250 miles. And between California and Nevada, oh yeah, there's no electrical stations to hook up to. So sorry, you can only travel 250 miles. And what that does is, without passing a law, restricts your freedom of mobility, which is exactly what they want, right? That's what it's about. Restriction of mobility, because in every totalitarian regime, you have to control the food supply, the energy supply, and you have to control the freedom of movement, right? That's what they're doing. And they're even going to control what your temperature is, man. I mean, Yahoo News had a story about how power companies now are taking over people's smart meters and putting in a smart thermostat. Yeah. So you go from a smart meter to now a smart thermostat that they can set from their company. I mean, this has happened. It's happened in Texas. And then the Blaze even had a story where an Xcel Energy locked out tens of thousands in Colorado residents and set their temperature at like 80 degrees when it was 90 degrees Fahrenheit outside. And you're thinking, what are these companies thinking? But this, again, is setting the stage for the implementation of a one world government control and controlling people's lives. You want to see how God predicted this? Look at Daniel chapter 7, 19 through 23. It tells us the features of the global government. Then I wished to know the truth about the fourth beast, which was different from all others, exceedingly dreadful, with its teeth of iron and its nails of bronze, which devoured and broke in pieces and trampled the residue with its feet. Now let's unpack that just real quick. Notice, the fourth beast is the Roman Empire, or we call it imperialism, and it has five phases, according to Scripture. And you put together Daniel 2, Daniel 7, Revelation 13, you'll come up with 5 phases. Well, we're in phase 2, and we're getting ready to go phase 3, and phase 3 is the global government, okay? So what it's saying about this fourth beast is that it's exceedingly dreadful. It's scary to a lot of people because it has teeth of iron. And what are teeth for? Eating, consuming. But the teeth are iron, not bone. And then it has nails, its claws of bronze. Bronze represents the Grecian Empire, but the bronze is on the nails. And what does that mean? Well, bronze, referring to the Grecian Empire, refers to Alexander the Great's swiftness. So notice what it's saying about the global government, that when it does things, it's very swift like Alexander the Great. So notice how this energy crisis has hit us so fast. That's the swiftness. But notice, though, it has nails of bronze. And what are the claws for an animal used for? Tearing their beast up. And so the teeth of iron devour. It consumes countries. Its agenda consumes states. It consumes everything. It consumes food. It consumes energy. It consumes everything, right? That's what the beast does. And then the nails of bronze, notice what it says, it broke in pieces. So it's used to divide its prey. So what it does is go into nations and divides the nations and tears them apart quickly through these crazy agendas that you see, right? That's what's happening. The United States is being torn apart and divided by the beast, and it's being consumed by the beast. And that would go the same for all of you out there in Western society, all of you out there in other countries beyond Western society. This beast you will not be able to get away from. Let's continue on. It says, which devoured, broke in pieces, and trampled the residue with its feet. So basically the residue of it are the nations in which it takes over. It will trample the nations. It will destroy them. So again, remember the agenda I said. We're going to destroy nations with an energy crisis, bring them to their knees, destroy the economy, have an economic crisis, right? Have a food crisis, have a water crisis, have an energy crisis, all that to bring a nation down and trample it to where the residue of that nation is under the feet of the beast empire. And then the beast empire will use that to take control. That's the idea of build back better. The concept of build back better is actually found in Daniel and what the global government tries to do. Destroy and build Babylon. Destroy, build Rome, or whatever term you want to use. It's going to rebuild in a global fashion. We're going back to Babylon. We're going back to Rome. But it will be a global system, right? A global system. Now he continues on in verse 23. Thus he said, the fourth beast shall be a fourth kingdom on earth, which shall be different from all other kingdoms. Now, the idea of being different from all other kingdoms, like I've mentioned before, is imperialism. Rome was the first country to ever practice imperialism. Well, now a lot of countries practice imperialism now, but the global agenda will be imperialistic. So this is what we're seeing right now. Wherever you're living, I'm living in California. Some of you are living in England. Some of you live in Canada. Some of you live in Mexico. Some of you in South Africa. Some in Australia. Some of you are in China. Some of you are in Russia. Some of you are all over the globe, okay? The agenda is global, isn't it? The green agenda is global, right? It's everywhere. All the nations are bowing a knee to this green agenda. We've got to save the planet hoax. And so they're implementing it everywhere. Look what they did to India's farmers. Look what they did to the Netherlands farmers, right? Look what they're doing to America's farmers. They're crushing them, right? Crushing them. And that's a form of imperialism. Imperialism tells another country what to do. And you and I didn't vote for these jokers. We didn't vote for these elitists, these globalists. We didn't vote for them, but they're telling us what to do. They're telling our countries what to do. They're telling the corporations what to do. That's imperialism. And look at the example of them destroying countries like Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka followed the agenda to the T and it went belly up. Economy was destroyed. Prime Minister had to escape. It just went crazy. So that's what imperialism does. And that's what's happening right now. And then it goes on and says, and shall devour the whole earth. That's where we get the term globalism. That's where Daniel's saying it doesn't devour a region, it devours the entire planet. Now, what does it mean? Every human population on the planet it devours. There will be no humans untouched by this. It controls the whole entire globe. And what will it do to these countries and peoples and nations? It will trample it, it says, and break it in pieces. It's exactly what it's doing, right? But let me add this. Revelation 17 adds another unique feature that I want to bridge to this, okay? And it adds the whore of Babylon on her being supported by this one world government, okay? Let's read it. Then one of the 7 angels who had the 7 bowls came and talked with me, saying to me, come, I will show you the judgment of the great harlot who sits on many waters, with whom the kings of the earth committed fornication. Notice what the kings of the earth did. And the inhabitants of the earth were made drunk with the wine of her fornication. There's what the brainwashing comes in effect by her fornication. Okay? And so these kings of the earth did a deal with this lady. Okay? So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness. And I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast, which was full of names of blasphemy, with 7 heads and 10 horns. Now, this picture of this woman sitting on a scarlet beast is a picture of this woman in the tribulation period, in the final phase of the Roman Empire, or what, if you want to call it, imperialism. But notice that she's sitting on it. It's this beast government that supports her. Well, who is this woman? Okay, well, verse 4. The woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet and adorned with gold and precious stones and pearls, having in her hand a golden cup full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. So her fornication and her abominations have created her to be a very wealthy woman. That's the idea of wearing purple and scarlet, precious stones and pearls and all that stuff. She's a very wealthy lady, okay? Because of her deals with the kings of the earth, okay? She's become rich. But she has a cup full of abominations and the filthiness. What does that mean? Well, in verse 5 it says this, and on her forehead a name was written, Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and the abominations of the earth. Now, what is that? This is the ecclesiastical Babylon, the religious Babylonian element, okay? So Babylon is going to be rebuilt. It's going to be a commercial, economic, political center of the world, and I believe it's going to be built right exactly where the Tower of Babel was. Okay, it will be the Antichrist headquarters eventually. Okay, but up until that point, until Antichrist requires worship of him, the global government will use this harlot, will use Mystery Babylon to be the glue to unite everybody in this religious element, okay? So what is Babylon? That's where all the false religions came from, right? She is the mother of harlots and the abominations of the earth. She is the mother of all false religions, okay? However, how does this tie into today? Well, remember, this going green stuff is a religion. It is a false religion. It perpetrates religiosity. So they kick Christianity out of Western society and the rest of the world, and in its place, they put the whore of Babylon. And the markings of the whore of Babylon are always simply this. She does the opposite of what God says. If God says this is good, Babylon will say this is bad, and vice versa. Hence, the green dragon, the religion of the green dragon, is Mystery Babylon. So the governments of the world using this agenda is a form of false religion, and that's why so many people are brainwashed by it, because it's a religion that they're pushing on people. Well, what do you mean? Well, think about this. This whore of Babylon is pushing the green dragon religion. Think about this. Who is their God? Well, their God is either themselves or the government, right? The government's typically, a lot of people's gods now. They'll believe the government, right? And behind worshiping the government or themselves is basically Satan. They're worshiping Satan, don't even know it. But it's the worship of the government. They'll take care of us. They'll tell us what to do. What is salvation? Well, salvation is saving the planet. Then they'll all be saved. What's the sin in this religious system? It's carbon emissions. It's humans, right? It's humans making the world warmer. That's the sin of humans, by emitting carbon emissions, right? Who's the enemy? Every religion has an enemy. The enemy for this religion is humans. It is anti-human. The whore of Babylon is anti-human. What's their eschatology? Their eschatology is they have an existential threat to Mother Earth and all of humanity if we don't stop global warming. So they have an eschatology, they have a doomsday, they have an Armageddon. Who are their priests? Well, it's the globalists, the corporations, Saudi Arabia, and they have their disciples as well, right? The education, the media, politics, science, Hollywood, music industry, low information people, and those who want to stay willfully ignorant. It's a flat out religion. It is the whore of Babylon. And so, do they have a sacrificial system? Yeah, they do. First, they want to sacrifice all of our standards of living. And by the time you get into the sealed judgments, everyone is starving to death and dying because of this agenda. And part of their sacrifice is human sacrifice. They don't care that humans die. They have an agenda called depopulation. They're Malthusian. They want to reduce the human population by any means possible. If that means starvation, if that means experimental, let's talk about it, darts, so I don't get kicked off of YouTube, putting that into people, they'll do that. Make them eat bugs to where they get sick from eating the bugs. Whatever, man. Starve them out from food. Limit their water. They don't care if people die. They don't care. They don't care if they put the world back in the Stone Age and people will die. They don't care if inflation goes up. They don't care. Because for them, it is necessary to sacrifice humans for their religion. Remember the whore of Babylon, she is bloody. In her cup is blood. She kills people. And that's what they do. So at the end of the day, guys, this going green, this going to electric cars, it's not about saving the planet. It is the whore of Babylon religion that is being supported currently by the governments of the world, which will eventually carry itself into the tribulation under the world government that supports this agenda. You and I are now privileged to see how it's working, how they're implementing it, and therefore, what does that indicate to us? We're close. We're very, very close, which means we better get busy, which means we better get on our horse and start doing the Lord's work until time runs out, because we don't have long. It is that close, guys, and I can't overemphasize that enough. We need to be about our Father's business. Don't be sitting on the spiritual couch, putting a white sheet on and waiting for the Lord's return. You want Him to find you busy. You want Him to find you working and doing everything you can in these last days. A couple things before we go. We got our website up. We got our church tracker. And if you're looking for a good church, use our church tracker, and possibly you could find a good church. You might have to drive, but we're starting to add churches all over that and helping people out to find a good church. Now, here's the thing. We need some of you to be scouts for us. This helps us in our church tracking because, yeah, we might say this is a good church, but we need you to go over there and check it out for us. We need you to ask the pastor certain questions, right? So you need to scout out the area and then get back to us and say, hey, Brandon, you guys had that on church tracker, but it's no good. The pastor's replacement theology, the pastor won't talk about prophecy or whatever, okay? And so a lot of you can help us in this by scouting out the area. Go to the church, see what they're about, talk to the pastor, because a lot of times we're just going on their statement of faith, But sometimes they bring a new pastor in and he doesn't agree with the statement of faith. A lot of these people haven't even looked at their statement of faith. So be a scout for us, man. Help us out. And your scouting helps other people find good churches. So it's a kingdom thing, to help other Christians out. So help us out in that regard. Second thing, make sure you're on our text alert. We got a strike on YouTube and we had to go off air for like 7 days or whatever. Get on our text alert so we can notify you of things coming or different events that are happening, special events. Follow this link and you can put your name and phone number in there. We can text you, okay? And then lastly, be praying for us. There's a lot of crazy stuff happening in our world that are coming against us trying to tell the truth. It's nuts, man. These people out there are nuts, some of them. They just want to destroy the truth, censor, and even threaten your life. It's insane. So pray for us. But also, if the Lord puts it on your heart to help us financially, we could use all the help we can get. We don't have our own building. We're building a building right now. It costs millions of dollars, but we need all the help we can get. We need money for this internet ministry to keep this going, to reach people around the world, for the equipment, for the personnel that's required. And then we just got to pay our bills at the church. We got bills and staffing and all kinds of stuff. So if the Lord puts it on your heart to help us, man, we would definitely appreciate it. It would propel us. Every cent boosts us. Everything is meaningful, man. So if the Lord puts it on your heart, thank you. We would appreciate that. And those of you who have helped us, man, oh man, thank you so much. It has blessed us. This is what is allowing us to build our building. This is what is allowing us to build our school. We're trying to build our school, and we're going to need donations for a school because the public schools are useless now. They're corrupted. So we decided to start our own school. And so help with that if the Lord puts it on your heart. But we're trying to create, things for believers so they can escape this crazy evil world. So anyway, remember what the Lord said. When you see these things begin to happen, like the setup of the global government, the whore of Babylon and her green agenda, look up, lift up your heads, for your redemption draws near. God bless you. See you next time.